Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very prestigious moment here tonight. But the funny part is just exactly 2 years ago, I had signed myself up for Alcoholics Anonymous. It is a place where people go to get help for their addiction. For me, at the time, I was struggling with a caffeine addiction, which was really a stimulant addiction. I was consuming 800 milligrams of caffeine every single day, and that was all I could think about. And my life was falling apart. My relationships were a disaster. My finances were a mess. I was putting everything on a credit card. I could not work because my brain was essentially broken. I had a brain scan, and the doctor told me, your brain looks like someone who's gone to war and came back with PTSD. It was bad. So there I was in that room with two other people. One of them was a recovered meth addict, and he was our counselor. The other person was actually an ayahuasca shaman, a shaman. So basically what a shaman is he was serving this medicine called ayahuasca. So people would go to this person to experience consciousness, to experience their essence of being. Some of them would go to this person to overcome their addiction. But there I was in this room with this person who was struggling with alcohol and myself struggling with caffeine addiction. I realized that no drugs would save my life, and I had to take the hard path. So the next thing I tried was I signed myself up for a Vipassana meditation retreat. So what that is for 10 days, they take away your phones, they house you, they feed you 2 meals a day. And for 10 hours a day, for 10 days in a row, you had to focus on a single point of awareness. And the point of awareness I chose was my mustache. So imagine focusing on your mustache for 100 hours. That was the turning point for my recovery. I had regained control of my awareness. And for 10 days, I overcame my addiction. That is the power of awareness. That is the power of awareness. And this morning, I was doing my morning routine and I was gazing directly at the sun with my eyes closed. And I asked myself, how would I describe a sunset to a blind person? Well, the blind man, he still has 4 senses, so you would use the 4 senses to describe the 5th. So how would you describe the essence of being, consciousness which has no words, to international high schoolers? Well, you would use 5 senses to unlock the 6th. The 6th sense is what some of us may understand as intuition, the spirit of God, creativity, or for the purposes of this speech, we're going to use a lot of metaphors. If you look at a lot of religious texts, the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, the Bible, the Upanishads, they were all written in metaphors, which is something to translate this consciousness which has no words into words or stories. So it is the 6th sense that will allow us the ability to perceive. So we're going to use the 6 senses and the 6th sense is a skill. Just like our 5 senses, it is a skill that grows with training. So if you go to the next slide, there's this quote by this famous French painter, Paul Gauguin. He says, "I shut my eyes in order to see." So what happens when you guys have your eyes closed? Try that for a minute. So when you starve yourself of the five senses, over time, you can open your eyes. Over time, you start to develop other senses. For this painter specifically, it was the ability to turn a vision into a painting. For some of you, it might be the ability to turn a thought into an idea into a reality, an intention into a manifestation. That is the power we all have. But oftentimes, we are so distracted by our phones. So, it is our thoughts and emotions that create our words that create our action that creates our habits that create our character, and our character that shapes our life. So if our phones are shaping our thoughts and emotions, probably they are also shaping our lives. So the first step we all have to do is to take responsibility for our own thoughts and emotions. We have to become producers and creators of our own thoughts and emotions. The person you are today is just a set of programs given to you by your parents, your country, your religion, your community, your school, your classmates, and it is something you can reprogram. It is a lot easier for high schoolers to reprogram themselves because they have neuroplasticity working for them. There's something called neurons inside our brains, and there's something called synapses that connect these neurons. And neuroplasticity is, for example, there are more synapses inside our brain than the entire galaxy, than all the stars in the galaxy combined. Pretty much, if you study infant development, we'll get to this photo in a second. If you study infant development, you'll realize that a baby's brain is fully developed, 70% of the way developed by the ages of 3. The rest of their lives till the ages of 25, we're still forming these connections in our brain. So that is the power of just your mind. So if you look at the photo on the right, what you see is what the body is made of. If we shrink our awareness down, right, we can start to feel that the body is made up of an entire galaxy. But then we can also expand our awareness. So what expanding our awareness mean is if we, for example, from the perspective of an airplane, looking down, this room right here is probably pieces of dust floating in space. So long story short, we are the entire ocean in a drop. Simultaneously, we are the entire drop in an ocean. That is really who we are. But for me to understand you, for you to understand me, we have to fit ourselves into labels. Oh, this person's black, this person's white. Oh, this person's a lawyer, this person's an A+ student. We have to narrow our identities. So the real process is a remembering process. It's to decondition, to unlearn the things we've been taught, and to fully remember what we remembered as children. So I'm going to do a little demonstration so you can start experiencing awareness. Awareness is something you have to experience for yourself. So I want you to close your eyes for a second. And I want you to place your awareness on your left butt cheek for 5 seconds. And then I want you to focus your awareness on your right pinky toe for 5 seconds. And then redirect it back up into your nose. And then you can open your eyes. You can do this for yourself, and all it requires is an intention. Intention is how you command this ship, how you command your consciousness. But we've given our powers away to our devices, and these things are evolving at an exponential rate. So the message tonight here is to simply take control of your awareness before technology does. Ladies and gentlemen, this life is extremely short. The last 10 years of my life just flew by, and now I am 27 years old, back in the same place I started 10 years ago. The next few years are just going to fly by. And some of you guys here in this room, I'm guessing, are seniors, juniors about to go off for college, right? You guys are ready for the moment you've been preparing for all your lives. And some of you guys might be experiencing what I call senior goggles. Who here is experiencing senior goggles? Where you start experiencing that it's the end, right? You're about to go off to space, right? You've been preparing all your life to go off to college, and finally you're experiencing that moment. And in those moments, we start to wake up. We start to realize that the end is near, right? We might not see our classmates ever again. And our minds start to change. Our consciousness starts to shift. But the truth is, we are experiencing a death and rebirth every single day. So, back to that experience of my Vipassana retreat. What focusing your awareness does, for example, if you focused your awareness on your left butt cheek for 100 hours, what you start to experience by day 10 is you start to experience that it is a bunch of vibrating molecules. You can start to experience the atoms vibrating for yourself. That is the power. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's one thing I want to leave with before I wrap this up is to truly and intentionally create your future. You have to start with the past. It is the past we came from that brings us to this present moment, which is why I studied Vedic astrology. But you guys don't have to study 10,000 hours into this random topic. What you can start with is simply this one writing exercise. What are 10 significant life events that has shaped you to where you are right now? What are 10 significant life moments that shaped you to this current moment? Because understanding that is the first step you need to creating a life of your own design. Thank you very much.